Hello and welcome to Rising Earth News. I'm Lily, and today I'm joined by Nick Carling from A Band of Brothers. So thank you so much for joining us today, Nick. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what A Band of Brothers is?
Yeah, hi Lily. So first of all, thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here and talk to you. A Band of Brothers is a charity that supports young men involved in the criminal justice system, and we do this through running rites of passage weekends, mentoring cycles, and weekly circles, and it's all run by volunteer men from the community. We also believe we offer a key element, and I would suggest a key missing element, and a powerful alternative to an already overstretched criminal justice system. And ultimately, our mission is to aim to create a culture where men can lead a meaningful and purposeful life, free from crime and free from violence.
Sounds fantastic. So could you tell us a little bit more about the problem that you're addressing? So the problem with potentially the problem surrounding young men in Western society.
A lot of the young men that we work with present with, there's a real pattern to some of the issues. So we're looking at things like drug addiction, self-harm, homelessness, gang culture, knife crime, drug dealing. These are the real the patterns that show up. So I can give you some statistics. This is generally around men and the criminal justice system. That 95% of the UK prison population is male. Over 80% of homeless people in the UK are men. And the current suicide rate for men is 13 a day in the UK, and that figure's 3 times higher than it is for women.
Do you know what it is that's causing perhaps some of these issues to be so prevalent, I guess, around in groups of young men?
I would suggest, so looking outward, we're looking at, in a nutshell, an absence of positive male role models. And this might be the result of things like growing up in care, breakdown of family environment, experiencing or witnessing domestic abuse, sexual abuse, drug abuse in the family, neglect, and in turn, these issues may result in loss of self-worth, loss of trust, and loss of hope. A breakdown in connection, ultimately resulting in a loss of a healthy sense of self. That's looking outward. Looking inward, in my opinion, we're looking at unexpressed and unprocessed grief, anger, and shame.
I think it's really interesting that instead of focusing on perhaps these problems, you're instead thinking about how we can tackle what's causing them, instead the root cause.
Yes.
So could you tell me a bit about how A Band of Brothers then is tackling these issues and kind of coming up with a solution?
So in A Band of Brothers, I mean, predominantly we mentor, we run rites of passage and we mentor, and a big part of that is creating a space or a container, if you will, where these young men can get in touch with their talk about grief, anger, and shame. That they can get in touch with these wounded aspects of themselves and be seen and be supported and be validated, not be shamed, not be blamed, and to start to connect and develop trust and an environment where these young men can really face the reality of where they're at and start moving through that and hopefully out the other side. In the Band of Brothers, we have a terminology: hurt people hurt people. And this is often multi-generational, and it can be difficult to break, but it can be broken. And this requires, this is a community problem, and it requires the community to address it.
I think that's wonderful. So you said that you come up with, again, you create these communities, and you've mentioned that you have mentors and rites of passage ceremonies, which I think is super interesting. Could you tell us a bit more, like expand about what exactly these mentoring programs mean, and what a rite of passage is, and where has this idea come from?
So I guess so. When the young men get involved in the Band of Brothers, the first thing that they will experience is a rites of passage weekend.
Okay.
And I guess really this is an opportunity. I mean, so rites of passage. So first of all, rites of passage in the UK, there is very little in the way of cultural, the presence of rites of passage in our culture.
Yeah.
In lots of indigenous cultures, rites of passage has been around for thousands of years. And the idea of around rites of passage is moving from one space to another. Okay, and in our situation, this is moving from adolescence into manhood, and this marks the transition. And this is something about leaving something behind and stepping into something new. And in this, there's a sense of risk, a sense of danger, a sense of courage, vulnerability, and surrender. And also something about the return to the village after the rites of passage. And for our young men, this is a return to their community. And in a Band of Brothers, we celebrate that with a homecoming event, which is after. So the rites of passage weekend, a 10-week mentoring cycle where they meet up with a young man, the young man meets up with an older man for 1 hour a week, and also weekly circles. And we celebrate with a homecoming event. So this is our attempt, if you will, at some kind of rites of passage program that mirrors what may have taken place in indigenous cultures.
That's really interesting, I think, trying to take the teachings from indigenous cultures who do have these already established communities and teachings that we really can learn from, of how to create strong, trusting, healthy communities. So I think that's really powerful. Yeah. So the rite of passage ceremony, did you say it's about passing from a stage of adolescence, so boyhood into manhood?
Yes.
And why is it, do you think, that is something that perhaps our society has been neglecting? Why do you think it's something that needs to be marked?
It's important, particularly for these young men, that they are really seen and taken seriously, and listened to, because every man will have his story, and the rites of passage also creates a safe container where we can actively together, older men and younger men together, can actively explore these issues around grief, anger, shame. These are the chains, if you will, that drag us down in our communities. That's my sense.
I think that's so true, so powerful, that everyone needs to express our emotions, because if we don't, then it's just going to get inbuilt, and where are we going to direct them? Yes. Negatively towards others? They'll
come out sideways in some way. And I think particularly for men, I think it's really important that we can model that it's okay to have feelings and to express them and to be vulnerable, and it's okay, and we can come out the other side of that still alive and still complete and more complete.
I thought that's beautiful. So obviously I completely agree with you that this is a great way to address these issues, but could you tell me a bit about the success of the program? How has it been going? How are the young men finding this community?
Yeah, okay, so A Band of Brothers has been going for 10 years. We got circles all over the UK. So in terms of, is it proving to be successful? The short answer is yes, and it's complicated. So I've got some statistics. 81% of participants showed an improvement in levels of self-esteem and self-worth. The proportion of young men with severe addiction issues dropped from 51% to 14%. Over 80% of participants experienced less conflict, and violent responses to conflict fell from 71% to 14%. Yeah, so there is success, and we also have, so for some young men, they'll get involved, they'll do the program, they'll put their attention on whatever it is they need to, whether it be their family, any addiction issues, employment, and they'll hopefully, you know, move on and attend to those things, other young men will remain in the organization. And we have some young men now that are moving on to becoming mentors themselves. So this is peer to peer, and this is really important, because when we go out and we engage with young men and tell them about what we're doing, you know, if the young men that are what we call graduate young men come with us on that engagement, you know, they know the streets, they know the language, they know the terminology, and they can really relate to these young men in a way that we as older men, we'd like to believe we can, and we'll do our best. But the young men are, you know, they understand.
You make a great point. And so I'm really excited that next week we'll be talking to one of these young men who has gone through the program and is becoming a mentor himself, I believe.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to talk to him as well. And we can actually learn firsthand the effect that it's having on real young men. On a personal level, have you gone through one of these rites of passage ceremonies yourself? And how was it for you? Talk us a bit through your experience.
Okay, so yeah, yes, I have is the answer. So when the young men come through the rites of passage, the older men that are also looking to volunteer with us come through the same rites of passage. And what that means is that any man that is involved in a band of brothers has been through rites of passage. So we would never ask a young man to do something that we haven't done already ourselves. For me personally, so I did my rites of passage in February 2017. It was the single most impactful thing I've happened to me in my life.
Oh, wow.
Why was that the case? So since that weekend and subsequently 4 years down the line, I've learned to trust other men. And I've also learned that that I can be trusted. Accountability. I'm accountable for my actions. Holding clear boundaries, holding loving boundaries. Asking for support was huge as a man, to ask for support and to be able to receive support. To be in service to something bigger than myself. And probably the most impactful is I'm not on my own.
Oh, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
So in service to something bigger than yourself, could you expand?
So it's not about me. This is about community. This is about something bigger. This is about living with purpose and living with having a sense of meaning. Yeah, it's something bigger. It's about community. That's what it's about.
I massively think that's so important, because we're kind of taught, especially in the society we live in, that we're in such an individualistic society that we often get into the mind state that it's all about me. Yeah. And that's dangerous, because it makes you lose sight of other people and connection and community, which is obviously so important. And I think now, especially with the pandemic and the community started to come together a bit more, we started to almost realize there's been a little bit of a shift. I think we've started to realize, okay, maybe community is a bit more important than how I considered it before. Yeah. And finally, how can people support a band of brothers? You know, if somebody's watching who wants to get involved, how can they do that?
So fundamentally, there are 3 ways that people can support a band of brothers. The first one is we're always looking for volunteer men that are willing to give up some time and energy to come and mentor with us, mentor young men. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we referrals. So we work a lot with probation, police, social workers. You know, there's a lot of people out there, the potential to refer young men to us, to put us in touch with those young men that are ready and willing to take support and make changes. And the third one, and classically, is finance, to donate. So Band of Brothers is a charity. We've got 12 circles across the UK at the moment, and we're expanding. Every circle is self-funding and has their own pot. Yeah, so donation is the way. The website is abandofbrothers.org.uk. And on the website is links to, you can see where all the different communities are. and each one will have its own set of contact details. So yeah, that's how people can find out more about us and support us.
Thank you so much for talking to us today, Nick.
Thank you for watching Rising Earth News. Don't forget to subscribe and follow our socials for your daily dose of positive eco news. Stay safe, stay green, and be a part of the age of restoration.